What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Cash Flow Chronicles podcast. I have a very special guest for you today. It's a real gift, and I'm saying gift because right around the corner is, I don't know about you guys, but one of my most favorite holidays of the year. And so we've got a fantastic person coming to grace the podcast today. You'll learn all about her, her story, everything that you need to know. She is full of wisdom even though she is far younger than you may think she is for somebody with as much knowledge as she has. Please help me welcome Hannah Kessler, the money multiplier, the millionaire chick, the whatever else you call her. I mean, she's a bad bee and she's here to talk infinite banking with us. So happy to have you, my friend.
Thank you, Shawn. It's a pleasure to be here. We're going to have some fun today, just getting
Yep.
into different things, different topics, and, Merry Christmas to everybody. Not 100% sure when this will air, but happy holidays. Feeling very grateful this year.
Yep. I'm definitely going to try and get this out right before Christmas. So if you guys are hearing this, like I said, let it be a gift. Maybe you listen to it on Christmas. Maybe you let your family listen to it. I don't know what we're going to talk about. Maybe you don't let your family listen to it. We'll see. But anyways, happy to have you. So, Hannah, I met Hannah pretty recently. I think the first time I actually met you was out in Indiana, in Indianapolis, when we went to one of the carrier kind of local events, get togethers. And I'd been following you for a little while, your social media, seeing some of the stuff that you do with the money multiplier. And I thought, wow, this girl's really impressive. She carries herself very well. She seems to be extremely knowledgeable. And her dad also heads off the largest, I guess, what would you call this agency of people who are out there teaching people about infinite banking. So you see a lot of times people who are children of people doing things. You're like, all right, well, did this person get dragged into this field? Is this really what they want to be doing? But I could tell really quickly, just from your videos, from your podcast, from your laid back sense of humor, that you absolutely love what you're doing. And then meeting you in person, I was like, oh, this chick's a hoot. Um, she's gonna be a great friend over the years. So I know you have so much knowledge and such an interesting upbringing and background. I heard that you're a little badass when you were growing up. So I want to kind of get into some of the beginning stuff and a little bit about early Hannah and then kind of talk about growing up with infinite banking and being the daughter to Brent and just how you've come to where you are today. We were having a little conversation before we turned on the mics, and you've got some really big stuff coming in 2025, some super exciting stuff that we'll touch on as well. But tell me just a little about the Hannah origin story.
Yeah, yeah. So, as of today, 25 years old. And, I started my infinite banking journey when I was 18, because you got to be 18 in order to own a policy. But even prior to that, I definitely grew up in the entrepreneurial realm. My father was a chiropractor. My mom ran the billing department within the chiropractic office. And actually, she was doing billing for other chiro offices too. So, I always did grow up with that mindset of being your own boss and, running your own business. And my first ever job too. I was 14. I was working at the front desk of one of dad's chiropractic clinics. However, I was, in my opinion, I just don't think I was challenged enough in school. I wish I would have done more of like the AP classes and kind of doing more maybe college creds when I was in high school, because then it kind of led me down a path of wanting to, do other things like drugs and partying and different things. So I kind of got into some trouble when I was growing up, and I talk more about that like in my book. But I got fired from the chiropractic office when I was 16, and so after that happened, I said, "Oh my gosh, what am I doing?" So that night, I was in tears. I went online, and then Cracker Barrel was hiring, and I said, "Okay, bet I can go be a waitress." And at Cracker Barrel, while because they didn't serve alcohol back then. Now they do, but they didn't prior. And so I could waitress at the age of 16 and make all of my own tip money. One thing I've always grown up with is I do have a very strong work ethic. I've just always had that. So I've always just been in the grind and wanting to do more for myself. And so that's why I really resonated with being a waitress because I'm like, hey, I can control how much money I'm making because the better I do, the more tips I'm going to be making, right? So I was doing that and I was just trying to identify what I want to do with my life. I was going to college for a little bit. I was maybe going to pursue the route of being a CPA, but that didn't really interest me. My real passion of what I would love to do in my lifetime is actually design clothes. I would love to have my own boutique and have my own label. But I was thinking to myself, because I was looking at all of these colleges, the one that really resonated with me was Savannah College of Art and Design. And back then, I actually have a 529 plan. And I learned that that 529 plan wouldn't fund for that out of state college that I wanted to go to. So I was like, okay, why would I go to college, rack up all of this student loan debt, and then once I leave college, go find myself like a 45, 50 grand a year job? That's not making any sense. I'm kind of working backwards. So luckily, Pops just called me up one day and he says, hey, I need help in my business. And if you're not going to help me, I'll go find someone to help me. And I was like, okay, Dad, well, what do you want me to do? And that's when he was, in this business of teaching people about the infinite banking concept, helping them get approved for their policies, showing them how to use it. And that's where I started off in this business. I was 17 and I was on the application team. I was guiding people through the underwriting process, getting them approved. And when I turned 18, I was kind of doing both gigs. I was working at Cracker Barrel, plus I was doing some applications with Dad, helping him in the business. And at that time, I was like, okay, I think I really want to make the transition to come and work for you, Dad, full time. And Dad says, okay, well, you can do that. But what you're going to do first is you got to start your first policy. So 18 years old, at that time, I was saving up about $100 a week. And so Dad says, okay, $100 a week, you're going to start your first policy 400 a month. And back at that time, I knew enough to make me a little dangerous, but not a whole lot of the ins and outs and all of the whys. So I was like, okay, Dad, I'll start this stupid life insurance policy. Sure. And he just really frames it that it's nothing more than just me forcing myself to save. And it's just my glorified savings account. And that's what I did. And I still look at all of my policies to this day that it's just my glorified savings where I keep and warehouse my money. And a matter of fact, the first ever purchase from my policy was this MacBook computer that I'm talking to you on right now. Because these suckers, they're like 2,500 bucks, right? So what I did is I was paying my premiums, saving up the money in there, and that was my first ever purchase. I think I was like 19 years old when I made that purchase. So ever since then, I evolved, I've gotten into investments, I've expanded my banking business, and everything that I really know is from following Pops, everything that he knows. He was my mentor in this. But I will tell you something. I'm learning, especially this year, sometimes you outgrow your mentors. And Dad has been a great, great mentor to me up to this point, but I feel like I'm at that next level where I'm ready to excel further. And so now I have other mentors, even outside of my father, that I'm working with to get me to that next level, which is some exciting stuff.
Definitely. That's an awesome origin story. And again, that shows a lot of you people out there. It doesn't matter, where you're at the beginning, if you just keep learning, growing, putting the time in. And like you said, somebody that has that hard work and dedication, it doesn't matter if it's towards infinite banking, if it's towards being a killer waitress at Cracker Barrel, like whatever it may be, surrounding yourself with the right people. And then, like you're doing now, finding really good mentors. People can usually only take you as far as they've gone. Then you got
Yes.
got to find other people to take you farther. So Are those Are those, mentors in the infinite banking space? Because I know this concept is pretty simple. Like, once there's not really new things that you're learning. There's a lot of information, and once you kinda understand it, you understand it, but then it really becomes learning more about yourself, learning more about the financial industry in general, the investment industry, and really just how can I reach other people and share this message? So, who what type of people are you surrounding yourself with now that are teaching you things? Like one of the gentlemen we were having conversations with, that you're going down to Acapulco and spending some time with.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I would say it's the people that are way more elevated than what I am. And not just financial wise, yeah, I think when you help enough people, the finances are going to quickly follow that too. It's the whole Zig Ziglar quote, right? Help enough people get what they want, you in return will get what you want.
Mhm,
But it's more so in mindset. They are just at a different place. They've gone through these experiences and life has happened to them. And from that, they are teaching the other people. And I think that's my biggest thing that I'm learning. I like to ask the hard questions to people more so of what did you do that failed? And now you can give me that feedback so I don't have to repeat that same process. For instance, like my father, when he was teaching me all about private lending, matter of fact, how he got the kids into doing a whole bunch of lending is he says, hey, kids, instead of you just keeping your money in your policies or maybe just down at the bank, give your money to me. I'll pay you 10% on your money and I'm going to pay you out monthly checks for the interest. And that's what got us into understanding how to put the money to work for us. So, one thing that I've learned, like from Pops, for instance, and this is why I've never lost money in a lending deal. And I mean, knock on wood, hopefully it never happens, right? But, I never take less than the first position. If I'm going to be lending like on real estate, I'm never going to take less than the first position because that's the only time that Pops has ever lost money is if he was in the second position or lower. So it's just asking those questions of, what did you do that failed? I'm going to learn from that and then keep going this direction.
yeah, definitely. So, you might have had a little bit different upbringing than a lot of people. How often, with your dad doing stuff like this and being a chiropractor, and again, if you don't know Brent's story, go listen to it, go watch the presentation, almost $1 million+ in debt. Pretty incredible story. But as a young girl, you've got two brothers, you're smack dab in the middle there, older brother and younger brother. Were there money conversations around the table when you guys were young? Was it and did that wait until you got a little bit older? Like, how did that come about for you?
No, good question. So let me tell you this because we did not start practicing this concept till 2008. Learned about it in 2006. And if y'all don't have this book here, Becoming Your Own Banker, okay, R. Nelson Nash, yep, you need to have this book. But dad learned about this in '06, thought it was too good to be true, didn't start till 2008 because his other chiropractic colleagues did start and they were ranting about how amazing it is. And so dad's like, okay, I think I need to get started on this now. So back then, though, I was about, oh gosh, would I be 9 years old? I think I was 9 years old back then in 2008. So back then, prior to that, there was a lot of hard conversations. I mean, just to be real, there was fights between mom and dad. Like sometimes to the point that kitchen chairs were getting thrown around. Sorry to put your stuff on blast, mom and dad, but it did, because all of that money stress, it carries into the relationship. So ever since then that they started to correct their money habits, They did start to bring it around the table and teach us more and more. They taught us the discipline of paying yourself first. No matter what, no if, ands, or buts, you pay yourself first, and you pay yourself no less than 10%, and then go pay everybody else next. And, dad kind of makes this joke sometimes where he's like, yeah, the kids really didn't want to learn about money, but here's what I do. I tell them that we're going to go get ice cream. I get them in the car, and then I lock the doors because nobody's going to hop out of a moving car going to go get ice cream when we're in here talking about money. So he kind of throws that joke. But in all seriousness, when we did start getting older, we started producing our own money. He would bring us into the conversations of, okay, I'm about to go purchase this new rental property, or hey, I'm going to go buy some more snowmobiles for Idaho and the rental cabins out there. Let me show you how I'm buying these things. I could bank finance it. This is option A, or I could take my policies and this would be option B. Do you understand now why I'm going with option B rather than option A? And it is, you need to bring it around the kitchen table, because if you don't, you're just going to get stuck in that conventional thinking and the habits and max out your 401k, go work for the man and climb up the corporate ladder. And yeah, it works for some people, but not everybody want to live that life, right? So definitely. And I'll tell you, it was hard before all of this and before getting our money in check. There was some deep and not great conversations, like to the point that my mother is Catholic, okay? She does not believe in divorce. And I promise you, I was this close to going down and getting that divorce.
Yeah, money problems. Number 1 cause of divorce in the US is money problems, guys. So, don't think of us as just people that are helping you get in your, financial situation together. We're helping you get your relational, you know, situation
Mhm.
together within the household, because if you can solve that problem, I promise you, just like with your family, a lot of things are going to sort themselves out because, God, that stress of money. I know you're single, the single millionaire chick, not the married with 5 kids millionaire chick, but it's when that time comes, if you decide to get into a relationship, boy, not having to worry about money is a big weight off your back. So,
Yes.
what are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned? Because like you said, your parents have been practicing now since 2008. My math is not good. I think that's like 15, 16 years. Uh,
Mhm.
don't quote me on that math, but what type of I'm sure you've seen so much change throughout what they've been teaching about infinite banking, how they've been kind of delivering that message to people. What has changed between the message that you were hearing in the beginning and how you were approaching people and what you were able to learn to what now you're using to help educate your clients and kind of utilizing your own policies?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I would say, the message always remains the same, right? Because the whole point of the infinite banking concept is to protect, manage, grow my wealth. Keep it in the family, right? So the whole message still is the same, but I would say now more than ever, people are being more enlightened to alternate banking, alternate investing. So those conversations are definitely becoming more and more frequent, where people are not going down the traditional path. So there's a lot more people getting into this realm, and that's what I think is so important. And Shawn, I just applaud you for having this platform and teaching others about the infinite banking concept in the correct way. Because I'll be real, there's a lot of people who get a hold of Nelson Nash's book and then think, oh, an IUL policy can be used for banking. No, right? So I would say the conversations are definitely shifting, specifically like in 2024. People had rough years, okay? And I think a lot of people are understanding that, all right, if I don't start this now and I'm not disciplined with this, I'm going to be in the same position I am today 5 years later down the road. And time is the only resource that we cannot get back. So there are people that are starting where maybe they would have just put it off and kind of kicked the can down the street just a little bit farther and farther because they're seeing the need to have the access to the capital. And that's the biggest thing I think with Americans is that we are severely undercapitalized. We just want to work and spend, work and spend. But when you need the money and you can't go qualify at a bank to go do whatever it is that you're trying to go do, what are you going to do then? Because you neglected yourself and your habits. And so now you got to make up with it by borrowing from somebody else. And then now you're paying all the interest out to them. And now the control is with the banker's hands or that other financial institution. So I would say people are getting really serious about the time to start is now. And also, ever since the pandemic, because let me tell you, I thought we were going to slow down. I thought people were going to be in a bind, people are getting laid off. But I think what the pandemic really did is it showed people, number one, what the government will do to their people. But then number two, that, oh my gosh, I need to prep for these unforeseen circumstances. Would you ever think in our lifetime that we'd go through a worldwide pandemic? No. So who knows? Maybe there's going to be a zombie apocalypse in 40 years and we got to be prepping for that stuff, right? And that's kind of why I'm a big someday in my future what I would love to do, I would love to have my own bunker. I'm just getting into my ammo and all of that fun stuff right now too. But stacking up the gold and the silver and different things, right? You need to have those other commodities and diversify your portfolio. But at the end of the day, before I go make any transaction, I always run my dollars through the policy first, and then I will go buy whatever it is, right? I don't know if I answered your question, but
No, you definitely did, and luckily for you, we both live in Florida, so you access to whatever it is that you wanna buy, building the bunker out, getting your ammo. It's unlimited. People love that type of stuff out here. So
Mhm, mhm.
so let's talk about you talk to so many clients. I mean, you guys have just a flow of clients coming in that are interested on one level or another, have seen the video, have heard the podcast, have watched you, Chris, whoever it may be on YouTube, and they're like, cool, I'm interested. But I started watching some stuff. I went down a rabbit hole. I saw some of this stuff. I saw some of that stuff. Let's talk a little bit about some infinite banking misconceptions. You
Mhm.
kinda mentioned one of them, the IUL thing, using it for IUL. That's we'll get into that in a second, but what's one myth or misunderstanding about the concept that you feel needs to be addressed or that you're constantly answering for clients, something that you see all the time or hear all the time when speaking to people?
Yes. Okay, I think 2 things. Number 1, people think they gotta have a boatload of money to start this stuff. No, you don't. And some of my people will even say, "Well, hey, this is great, but I'm gonna wait to save up to have $25,000 to dump into this thing." No, time. Time is the most important factor in all of this, and that's what I look at. If I can start on a monthly premium just to get some dollars in there on an uninterrupted compounding cycle, I'm going to do that. I'm not going to wait until I have money stored up to then do a large dump in because you can always expand and start more policies as time goes on. So I would think that's the biggest thing is people think they got to have a lot of money to do this. You don't. Like I said, it's just your savings account. So what are you saving? You need to be saving something. Be disciplined with it. But I'll even tell you too. Actually, I had a phone call today with one of my clients. She has two policies, started them both in 2019, and she brought her financial advisor on the phone. Okay,
Cool.
and the biggest thing too is that people don't understand that there is a cost to your capital. Some people think that, well, hey, I'm not investing my money. I'm not making large purchases. So, how will this concept and these policies actually work for me? It doesn't serve any purpose for me then, does it, Hannah? And they don't understand what's technically called the opportunity cost of their money, because he literally gave me the example. He says, well, why would I do this? Instead, I just have $10,000 sitting inside of my checking account. If I need to go buy a new car, I'll just withdraw the money from my checking account to go pay cash for the car. But what you don't understand is that 10,000 was sitting in your pocket at the local bank earning you some form of interest. I know maybe it's not a lot of interest down at the bank, but it was earning you some form of interest. And when you just go and withdraw it and pay cash for something, the money's gone. It's left your hands, it's left your family forever. So, in order to get it back inside of your pocket, earning you interest again, you got to go out there and work for it or earn it somehow. So, people don't understand that there's always a cost to the capital. You either give up the interest you could have earned, or you pay out the interest to somebody else, AKA bank finance it.
Yep. You should have told, "Hey, man, listen, I would love to answer that question. Could you read the book?" Just like there's all the answers. All the
Yep.
answers are just in this book, and yeah, you're totally right. Like they're people just don't understand the opportunity cost of their money. It doesn't make sense. You're like, "Hey, why would I borrow my own money? Why would I pay somebody to use my own money?" They're just having this hard concept of not realizing OPM and understanding that real wealth is built by using other people's money. And if
Yes.
your money can live in a place where it's going to continuously compound forever while you are still
Tax
able to use
free.
it elsewhere, yeah, tax free, then again, once I understand the power behind that, but for some reason that concept is just so hard to understand for a lot of people. So funny
It
that you
is.
had a similar situation today. So, in your podcast, I listen to your podcast. If you guys don't know, wearing shirt right now, Do Your Dollars Make Sense? The Money Multiplier podcast. Highly suggest going and checking it out. How long have you been doing that for now? Because I know at the very beginning, you did it with one of my mentors and favorite people,
Yeah.
Jonah. So, how long you been doing the podcast for?
Yeah, yeah. So we literally started that thing, I want to say 2020, maybe late 2019, but I think it was 2020. And really, the podcast came about. It's supposed to be my father's podcast,
Yep.
but he does not do great with technology and he does not do great with sticking to an agenda. He just wants to get up every day and figure out what he wants to do that day. So I said, okay, Dad, this ain't working. I'm just going to take this over. And I wasn't confident in myself. I mean, I had all the knowledge, but just like putting myself out there, and I was still young, still am young, but I just didn't have that confidence. So I said, Jonah, do get on this podcast with me and we're going to co host this together. And that's what we did. I want to say for like a year or so, we co hosted this thing. And then there was one day that I said, okay, Jonah, I think I'm good. You can go away now and I'm just going to carry on doing this by myself. And so ever since then, every week on Tuesdays, episodes are going live. And I'll tell you, the only reason that we really started the podcast is because you'll notice when you're talking to people, the questions are the same. I don't think I've gotten a new question in like 3 years. And if they ask you a question, maybe they just word it a different way, but it's the same question. So I said, okay, instead of me spending my time answering these questions over and over again, I'll just record a podcast. I'll still answer their question. Maybe it's just more short term, but then I'll send them this podcast episode where I get deeper into it. And that's the whole reason that the podcast even came about.
Yeah. I mean, and it's great to just talk about these things. Like we tell people all the time, when you get policies, you want to stay around the fire. You want to stay listening, learning, implementing all of this stuff, because if you don't, it's easy to let somebody like the gentleman that you were talking to earlier convince them like, hey, this is probably not where your money should be. When in all reality, when you went through the process and you understood what it was and you were around the fire, you're like, this is the best thing ever. How in the world didn't I know about this? But now you got your advisor trying to convince you that, oh, we could get better returns elsewhere. You're like, you're missing the point, sir. But
Yes.
the yeah, so guys, definitely go check it out, The Money Multiplier. I know you got a bunch of stuff on YouTube as well, but the podcast is a great listen. I listen to episodes every time they come out.
Thank
Waiting for it. Yep, waiting for it once a week. So if you want to find out maybe how you could learn a little bit more about Hannah and get to know her a little better without actually getting to chat with her, then the podcast is a good way to do it. Like I said, before I met you in Indianapolis, I felt like I already knew you because I had listened to so many episodes of the podcast. So it's kind of cool doing that. And in the podcast, the reason I asked that is, and for your personal experience, being 25 years old, having started your first policy around, 17, 18 years old when you got into this, what you talk a lot about, you know, teaching families, teaching the younger generation. How important do you think it is? And, how big of a role do you think getting into infinite banking at a young age has done for you and could do for other people? Because again, I don't I'm not gonna put this on you, but I don't know if you'd be the single millionaire chick right now if you didn't have, this type of information, at that young of an age. Like, what do you think the value is? Great for older people, people in their 40s, 50s, 60s, it's fantastic. But we know the most powerful part of constant compounding is the time factor. So, talk to me a little bit about some of the, getting to the kids at their young age. And I know you got a heart out here, so we're gonna get you a couple more quick questions, some of your policy in action and how you've been using your stuff. But talk to me a little bit about the early generation and getting it to them first.
No, knowing is so important because here's the thing, and you'll notice this too, Sean, when you're talking with your people, most of the people that we're talking to, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and FYI, I won't get deep into it right now, but even though you're 70, 80, no, you're not too old to do this stuff. But, they don't start getting serious about their finances until they're like looking at the clock and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm 55 years old. I want to retire in 10 years and I don't have anything to show for it. So, that is more of the people that I'm talking to. But again, I do have a lot of 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, even people in their teens. I actually have somebody who's 16 and I said, okay, you can't own the policy yet, but we could have mom and dad own it for right now. And then when you're 18, then you can own it. But I think people really start getting serious about it is number one, when they do have a big catastrophe that happens and when they are getting into those later stages. But I'm telling you, the two biggest things that I hear within this space is number one, Hannah, I wish I learned about this and started this way sooner in my life. And number two, Hannah, I wish I started my first policy with a lot more in premium. And once you start getting into it deeper and deeper, you'll understand why they say that. But it's just time. Time is the most valuable factor in all of this. And like I mentioned, you can't get time back. Time is the only resource that can't be recreated. So I like the Gen Z millennial generation and specifically getting to them now because you don't have to go in and have them rethink their thinking to unlearn what I call all of the BS that they learned growing up with the conventional wisdom. And it's easier because if you've ever gone on YouTube and looked at the backwards bicycle video, that's a good video. I recommend everybody. Backwards bicycle. It's about 7.5 minutes long. But in there, he notes that it's easier for children to get this, just like learning a new language. They have more neuroplasticity, so it's easier for them to pick up on stuff than somebody who is older. For instance, I was just at my dentist, right? I'm about to get my Invisalign, for instance. They were telling me it's going to be easier to shift my teeth because I'm younger compared to somebody who's older because my bone density is not as strong as somebody who's older. It's the same thing with this. So when you can start teaching them of how they should be treating themselves as their number one asset, pay yourself first, be disciplined with it. And then from there, the money that you are paying yourself first, that should be the dollars that redirect into the policy, my humble opinion. When you start to get that discipline and habits, I'm telling you, the opportunities start to present themselves. People who are needing the money that want to go put it to work. And now you have the capital there that you can go and do those different investments or make those different purchases because you prepped for yourself.
perfect transition. Talk to me a little bit about how you've utilized your policy over the years. You said your first policy loan was to buy your computer that you're currently using right now. What else have you done? And then we'll end on some of the, uh, you know what? No, squeeze a few more things in here real quick. But just talk to me a little bit about, because people see, hey, I put my money into this thing. I don't have any debts. Maybe I'm not in real estate. I'm not a real estate investor, so I'm not doing it for that specific reason. How do I utilize my policy? What are some things that other people are doing?
Yes, 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 yes. So and that's a question I get a lot too. Well, Hannah, I don't got debt. How am I going to use this? And you don't got to have debt to do this. I'm in the same boat with you. I don't got debt. Yeah, I got some good debt, some low interest rate mortgages and 0% stuff, but not any bad debts. And so what I would say is that the majority of what people do first, because let's be real, 78% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, and that's a 6% increase from the previous year. So, most of the people that are showing up at our front door, they're in debt. They're in that financial hamster wheel, and that's what we help them with first, getting out of the debt. And that would be my first advice. Clear out any of the bad debts first using the policy. But then from there, once my debts are paid off, well, now I got this freed up capital each month. I'm building it back up inside of my policy. Now, what do I go do with this money? And that's where the investments come into play. And I'm never going to tell you how to go invest your money, how to go make your money. But if you want to have those buddy conversations, we can. I'll turn you on to what I'm doing, what's working out for me. But, whether it's stock and options trades, I got people who are day traders in the markets using their cash values, crypto guys, and it's just because they understand it. Invest in the things that you like, know, and understand. So investments, real estate, maybe it's acquisitions, buying up businesses, whatever you like to do. Investments are a great way to double dip on the money, make the spread and the arbitrage on those dollars. But even my property taxes. Y'all, I just got hit last month or month before with my property tax bill, and I just bought this new condo over here in Daytona Beach. Oh my gosh, it was so expensive. It was like 10 grand. I was like, are you kidding me? Why'd you do that, Hannah? So what I did is I took a loan from the policy, paid that to Volusia County, and then now over the course of this month, I'm saving back up inside of my policies, prepping for next year's tax bill. So, taxes, my charitable giving, every year I donate to various 501(c)(3)s through my policies. Um, what else is there? It's literally anything and everything that I'm just buying in life, my boats, my automobiles, et cetera, et cetera. I'm now just using my policies to do so.
Yeah, seriously, guys, it's endless opportunities. I feel like when you get into this space and you become an infinite banker, you just start to meet all of these people, and capital attracts opportunity. And so when you have this liquid money, when you have the ability to send that out and put to work for you, the options just, I wish I had more money to go with more opportunities that always being presented to me. So it's this awesome feeling when you're like, hey, I've got this money. I want to put it to work. Well, I'm in this community where these people could give me a whole bunch of information, educate me, and help me find the right places to put my money. Again, never making suggestions on what you should do, just telling you what we're doing, what's working for
Mhm.
us. So I think we'll wrap it up with this last question, and I'll let the people know where they can find you at. But
Hey, and I'll be back on.
yeah, definitely, because we've got a lot more to talk about, and I'm gonna come hop on your podcast as well. But
Mhm.
advice for beginners. So for those people that are new to infinite banking, maybe they're looking at it for the first time, maybe they've watched a few videos, maybe they just haven't kind of pulled the trigger yet. What's the best advice that you would give them just to help them along with their journey?
Yeah, yeah. And I applaud people for going out and doing their own due diligence, poke around to other people, see who you vibe with the most, because it's a lifelong relationship. It's a lifelong process and lifestyle change that you're implementing into your life. But I always say this, totally excluding the policies out of it. you should be understanding your cash flow that comes in monthly. And it kind of mind boggles me how people will just spend. They think that they have checks left on the counter and there's still money left in the bank, right? So you need to start getting disciplined in your bookkeeping, is maybe what I want to call it. But just understanding, okay, how much money is coming into me? Where then is all of my money going? What are my different expenses? What are my subscriptions that I'm paying? My different debts that I have? And what we should really be looking at is how much money am I keeping for myself? Dad has always taught me it doesn't matter how much you make, it only matters how much you keep. And so the keeping monies that I'm having for myself, those are the dollars that I start to redirect. And that's the money that I start to flow into the policy as my ongoing premium deposits. So I would say get organized and understand what's going on. I mean, the resource that I use, Rocket Money, if you ever heard of that app, I pay them $5 a month, have all of my credit cards, checking accounts hooked up to it, and automatically tracks everything for me.
Yeah, that's huge. So again, budget. I couldn't agree more. I think budget is huge. Understanding the in and the out, and that's where we can kind of decide what can go and build you a policy. So, Hannah, I couldn't appreciate your time more. Really quickly, let the people know where they can find you, how they can follow you if they enjoyed this, and then I'll let you get on with the day.
Yes, man, and I'm gonna see you here very soon. I think we got some trips up to Idaho planned, maybe? We'll talk
Yep,
about it.
I believe
Yeah?
so. Hmm.
Okay. But yeah, no, you can find me on YouTube, the Money Multiplier podcast, and all the different podcasting streaming platforms. Find me on there on Instagram, Facebook. You can look me up. My first name is Hannah, spelled the same ways forwards and backwards. Hannah Kessler with one S. And big shout out too. Actually, my book is being published on the first. Well, excuse me, coming out on Kindle. I will be publishing it hard copy here soon. But if you go to Amazon, The Single Millionaire Chick, I just share my story of how I got here.
That's awesome. So, nice little Christmas present to get yourself after the new year begins. And what better way to start the new year than with reading? Because all this knowledge that we have found is found in these little things right here called books, even though that one is going to be an electronic one. So, yeah, I greatly appreciate your time, my friend, and look forward to chatting with you again and some of the fun stuff that we got coming up. So, appreciate you, and I'll chat with you soon.
Thank you, Shawn. Catch you soon.
Bye, my friend.